Welcome to the season finale of the 10th Rule Books Old School Radio Serial Podcast, brought to you, of course, by 10th Rule Books, bringing you the pulp fiction that skips the boring parts. This week we had the conclusion of the New Mexico Institute of Reanimation and flash fiction from the great Tom Pitts. Enjoy. A Loaded Question by Tom Pitts. First came the red and blue lights, followed by a surge of adrenaline in Eric's heart. He could hear his own breath shaking through his nose. Shit. He gripped the steering wheel, hoping that the cruiser would fly right by. Then the whoop 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 of the siren. That fucking cop wasn't going anywhere. He pulled over to the side of the highway and watched the luckier drivers fly past. He waited for the cop to walk up to the car. He wanted to light a cigarette. But that seemed to him like a guilty move, a tip-off, a cover-up. He reached over and switched the radio on. Classic rock. He turned it up, just a little. The cop leaned into the window of the car. "Good evening, sir." Typical cop, stone-faced, accusing. Dumbass thinking he's a hard-ass. "Do you know why I pulled you over tonight?" Trick question. "Well, I don't think I was speeding, was I, officer?" Eric answered. He didn't like the sound of his own voice. The officer smirked and shot the beam of his flashlight past Eric to the empty passenger seat. "What is this dumb fuck looking for?" thought Eric. "I stopped you because you have a taillight out." Eric sent up a look of hurt surprise. "Really? Damn it. I'll get it fixed first thing in the morning." "Where are you headed tonight?" "Home. David City. Keep it simple." The officer took this in, weighed it. "License and registration, please." Eric began to fumble with his overstuffed glove box, letting old tickets and napkins fall to the floorboards. "Anything to drink tonight, sir?" "No, officer, not a drop," Eric said, handing over his license and wrinkled registration. The officer held them, but kept looking at Eric. The cop walked back to his car. Eric watched him in the front seat of the cruiser, reading Eric's whole life on the mounted monitor. It took forever. Cops loved this part. "Step out of the car, please." "Excuse me?" "Take the keys out of the ignition and step out of the car." Inside the trunk, Paula struggled. She had no idea why Eric pulled over. She had heard the siren, prayed it was for them. She was bound tight with duct tape, a sweaty sock stuffed deep into her mouth. After the tape, he hogtied her, roped her limbs onto the spool of the spare tire. Taking her 20 minutes just to bang her knee into the taillight. There was tape on her eyes, her whole head. There was no way of telling what was going on outside the car. All he'd left exposed were her two snotty nostrils. She thought she heard music, not a good sign. Then definitely a car door shutting. She rocked her body. She tried to scream, but all that came out was a moan. She was like an insect in a cocoon. "Now follow my fingers with your eyes, carefully." Eric followed with his eyes. "With your feet together, I want you to reach back and touch both index fingers to the tip of your nose." Eric touched his nose. It was easy. He was stone cold sober. After a few more exercises, the cop gave up. "When was the last time you were arrested?" Trick question. He'd already run Eric's name. "June 2010, domestic violence," recited Eric. "Are you still together with your wife?" A loaded question. Better make it good. "No, we split up last year." Eric paused and said, "Marriage, that's what'll drive a man to drink." The officer smiled for the first time. "Get that taillight fixed first thing tomorrow, and be careful driving home." In the trunk, Paul heard the door open and shut, felt the motor start up. Soon they were back on the road. She figured she had about 40 minutes left. She wished that she could just will herself to stop breathing now. Save the bastard the trouble. Deny him the satisfaction. That was A Loaded Question by Tom Pitts. If you enjoyed this, please check out some of his books, like his latest, US 101, or my personal favorite, Hustle. Want to wear your Pulp Fiction and skip the boring parts? Well, you can. Just head over to teespring.com/10th Rule Books merch shop. Remember, enter the promo code COOL at checkout for free shipping. And now the conclusion of the New Mexico Institute of Reanimation. The right side of Bandsaw Bobby's head exploded when the bullet that came in his left temple flattened on impact and burst through the left side of his face. Even with a good third of his head gone, he kept his grip on Ashley's neck and turned so the teenager's body blocked a blood-covered Gloria, using the wall to support her from getting off another shot. Gloria tried to move and get an angle to shoot him, but with only one leg she didn't have much mobility. When she did move, Bandsaw turned so Ashley stayed between him and her gun. While he was turning, Danny, the guard from the front desk, sat up on the other table. He pulled the IVs out and started towards Gloria. Gloria saw it coming and turned to fire. When she did, she put weight on her fractured leg and fell to the floor. Gloria rolled on his back as the guard lunged at her. She got her good foot up and kicked out, putting the bottom of her shoe on Danny's chest and stopping his progress for a second. The second was long enough to raise her gun and fire. She put enough bullets in his head to end his life for the second time, but his weight was still coming forward, and Gloria ended up pinned under the security guard. Well, Bandsaw still had Ashley's neck and wrist. Getting shot in the head loosened his grip on both for a second. This allowed Ashley to get a breath, let her move her arm up an inch before Bandsaw clamped down again. The inch she gained allowed her to bend her wrist so she could point the weapon his way. Ashley pulled the trigger and put a bullet through the dead serial killer's throat. She adjusted her aim and put the next round into his nose. She fired again into his open mouth as he started to say something. Ashley twisted her wrist so the next time she fired, the bullet hit Bandsaw in the bicep. He let go of her neck and she dropped to her feet. Ashley punched the arm holding her wrist as she pulled away, and Bandsaw no longer had her in her grasp. She stepped back and aimed properly. She put bullets in his face until the gun held no more rounds. Bandsaw hardly had a head at all when she finished, but he still stood there a full second before he fell to the floor. She looked over to see the woman who saved her roll Danny, the dead security guard, off her. "Are you okay?" Ashley asked. "No, but I'm alive." "You're like covered in blood." Gloria pointed at the remains of Ashley's father. "Some poor bastard on top of me when that happened to him. It's more legs, it's a problem." Ashley held up her gun and checked the magazine. "I'm out. How about you?" "Yeah, maybe we got them all." Ashley looked over at Denise, who was standing with her back against the door, looking like she was in shock, and said, "I was actually thinking about her." "What?" Denise said. Ashley pointed at Bandsaw's body. "He told me he didn't kill my mom." "So? He's a brain-dead psychopath," Denise replied as she stepped forward. "True, but why would he lie? He was proud of what he'd done." "I don't know. I can't think like a brain-dead murdering psychopath." "Oh, I think you can. Throw greedy in there and I think it describes you perfectly. Look, we've been through a lot here. Save it. I heard you and my dad talking in the hall. Maybe if Bandsaw hadn't told me he didn't do it, I would have made the connection. But what else could Dad have done for you involving my mom?" "You're going to accuse me of murder off of that," Denise said as she stepped right in Ashley's face. "My dad practically confessed. He fucking apologized for it." "It's still awfully thin for a murder accusation." "I ain't a court of law, bitch." Denise sighed before she said, "You know, this will make it a lot easier to clear the bank accounts." "What will?" Denise answered with a right cross to Ashley's face. The blow sent Ashley stumbling backward until she tripped over the dead guard and landed on one of the tables. Denise was on top of her before she could do anything, wrapping her hands around Ashley's throat and starting to squeeze. "Leave her alone," Gloria shouted as she tried to crawl close enough to help. "Shut up, bitch," Denise said. "You're next." Gloria saw the IV needle connected to the bag over the hole of loose solution. The guard came back to life before Bandsaw pumped him. The needle was still dripping with fluid. "To your right," Gloria yelled. "Grab the needle and stab her with it." "Who are you you talking to?" Denise asked as she increased the pressure on Ashley's neck. Ashley knew who she was talking to and reached her right hand back, searching for the needle Gloria was talking about. She didn't find a needle, but she did find the tube. "That's it," Gloria shouted. Ashley ran her hand along the tube until she found the end. She grabbed it and shoved the sharp end into Denise's shoulder. "You really think that's going to stop me?" Denise said, but as soon as she said it, her skin where the needle went in began to burn. "What the fuck?" Denise said as she stopped choking Ashley to pull the needle out of her arm. While Ashley was gasping for air underneath her, Denise looked at the bag connected to the needle. "What did you put in me?" "The reanimation fluid," Gloria answered. "I hear it's not good for the living." Denise's arm began to vibrate. She got off of Ashley and asked, "What do you mean, not good for the living?" Gloria pointed at the bones floating in a puddle of blood that used to be James and said, "Kind of like that." "Kind of? Like not as bad?" Denise said as her whole body began to shake. "No, kind of. As in worse." Denise fell to the floor. Her mouth started to leak yellow foam as her body convulsed. Ashley sat up, rubbing her throat, and watched as Denise started to flop on the ground like a fish pulled out of the water. "There's an antidote in the cabin somewhere," Gloria said as she pointed at the open cabinet. Ashley said, "So?" as Denise began to bleed through her eyes. "You don't want her to die, do you?" Ashley stood, looked at the cabinet, and then back to Gloria. "Actually, I totally do." Denise's eyes exploded as blood poured out of her ears. "I don't think it would help much at this point," Ashley said as Denise puked up a bucket of blood and then quit moving. "You have a problem with this?" she asked Gloria. "I take it she killed your mom or something?" "I think it was my dad, but he did it for her." "I'm sorry." Ashley walked over to Bandsaw, took his key card and said, "Yeah, me too. Are you like the girl on the news?" "Yeah, Action 7. You're prettier on TV." Gloria considered telling her she looked better not covered in blood, but instead said, "Yeah, I get that a lot." "You're not going to tell anyone about Denise or my father, are you?" "No, I think I have plenty of story without bringing you guys up." As she reached out and helped Gloria up, she let Gloria lean on her so she didn't have to put weight on her mangled leg. As they limped to the door, Gloria asked, "Did Bandsaw say he liked you?" "Yeah, he said it more than once." "Why do you think he liked you?" Ashley glanced back at Denise's melting body and smiled before saying, "I have no idea." The end. You've been listening to 10th Rule Books, old school radio serial podcast, brought to you, of course, by 10th Rule Books, bringing you the pulp fiction that skips the boring parts. This was the season finale, so we will not be back with a new episode next week, but we will be back with season 5 soon enough, featuring more of flash fiction from some of the best indie crime writers and horror writers on the planet, and another long-form radio serial for your enjoyment. As always, if you like this, please check out our books, like our latest, A Night at Swinging Dick's Saloon, or Todd Moore's sequel to Jesus Saves, Satan Invests, What Would Janet Do? As always, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. We will see you soon.